The Stasi was the official state security service of East Germany, also known as the German Democratic Republic, during the period of 1950 to 1990. The Stasi was one of the most notorious and comprehensive intelligence and security agencies in the history of the Cold War era. The Stasi's reign of psychological terror was a chilling symphony of manipulation and fear, where every aspect of an individual's life became a battlefield of psychological warfare. One of their eeriest tactics involved unsettlingly subtle intrusions into personal spaces. Imagine returning home after a long day, only to find your home slightly abnormal. Your cherished belongings have been discreetly rearranged, a chair subtly shifted, a painting hanging askew, a cherished memento placed just a fraction to the left of where you left it. This unsettling violation was no mere accident. It was the Stasi's cold, calculated artistry at play. This psychological sleight of hand, dubbed the furniture shuffle, plunged victims into a maddening dance of doubt. The seemingly innocuous rearrangement was a haunting reminder that the boundaries of their personal sanctuaries were nothing but a mirage, a mind game that whispered, "We are in your thoughts, your spaces, your life, always." But the torment didn't stop at furniture manipulation. The Stasi wove a web of terror with tactics like Zersetzung, a cruel form of disintegration. Friends turned into potential foes as carefully crafted lies and malicious whispers corroded even the closest bonds. Letters arrived, dripping with insidious content, revealing secrets only the walls should know. There were also the clandestine entries, an eerie intrusion that left no trace but an uncanny feeling of being watched. They didn't vandalize or plunder, they simply left behind a chilling residue of their presence. An open book, pages delicately turned, as if someone had just left the room moments before. This was the Stasi's art, a sinister masterpiece of gaslighting, isolation, and manipulation. A relentless barrage of psychological onslaught that turned reality into quicksand and trust into a fragile illusion. Each tactic was a stroke on the canvas of fear, each action a note in the symphony of paranoia. In a world where shadows held secrets and even the walls had eyes, the Stasi orchestrated a horrifying drama of power and submission, leaving victims trapped in a harrowing dance of their own vulnerabilities.
Hello there. Thank you for joining me today. I have a wild story for you. I bet you thought I was going to be talking about snakes, didn't you? Well, I'm going to be talking about people who operate like snakes. They love that hissing sound, right? These cowards. Well, it's a historical fact that the U.S. has officially targeted its citizens on multiple occasions. Programs such as MK Ultra and Counter Intel Pro can't be denied. Lots of information out there about these things, and I have covered them myself. Well, I think I discovered when did gang stalking get started and how did it get started. Interesting. So what I'm going to be doing, I have all these shows, and now that it's winter, winter makes the air inside of your home easier to handle because plutonium doesn't seem to hang in the air during the winter like it does in the summer. So anyway, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be going through this file and telling you what I know today because this is a pretty big deal and it covers a lot of people. It's not just people like myself that they're in fact gang stalking. So this is too much. It actually started in East Germany. The Stasi. That's the secret police they had during that time. Reportedly, the usual rumors spread about a person are that they are a pedophile, prostitute, terrorist, racist, anti-government, mentally ill, drug addict, drug dealer, or a threat to national security. They are often spread to neighbors, friends, family, employers, etc. A major effort is spent to separate a person from their friends and families. So how do they do all this? Getting people to turn on the rest of us, right? People against people. This is how it's working. Deception is the name of the game, so recruits are told a number of untrue, sinister stories of their victims to keep them motivated. The Stasi, I think it's pronounced Stasi, Stasi, used the exact same tactics. And here's what they said. The agency, meaning the Stasi, was authorized to conduct secret smear campaigns against anyone it judged to be a threat. The Russian KGB also, with its massive network of informants, would slander their internal targets. These rumors may be propagated by multiple people or informants behind a target's back. Apparently, not letting a targeted person become aware of these rumors is essential to their effectiveness. And here's a really good example. One morning, you're walking out to your car, and a man walks in front of you, stares directly at you in a hostile manner, while repeatedly clicking his pen the whole time. You feel a little uneasy and say to yourself, boy, that was weird. What was his problem? Then 2 hours later, you're leaving a shopping mall on a day that it was not particularly crowded. As you walk out to your car, an old lady approaches you on foot. As she almost collides with you, she locks her eyes onto you with a hostile demeanor while clicking a pen the entire time. Then maybe you tell yourself something like this. Well, there couldn't be a relationship between those events, probably just a coincidence. But they both stared at me in such a mean way while hammering their pens. Later in the afternoon, you're on your way home. You're at a stoplight, and out of the corner of your eye, you see a passenger in the car to your left. You hear a slight noise, and you glance over. You see a man glaring at you with a grin on his face. His arm is hanging out the window, and he is holding a pen, which he is repeatedly clicking. Now imagine that happening for a month. Then a few days later, you're on a sidewalk with a friend or a family member. A man walks by, doesn't look at either one of you, but clicks a pen a couple of times. You feel anxious and afraid. You may not even know that you've been sensitized. And these are the kinds of things that I'll keep reading here so you understand how this works, because it sounds crazy, right? Because the whole idea is to make the person being attacked is the one they want to make us sound like we're crazy. They say the methods reportedly employed in these harassment campaigns bear a striking resemblance to those attributed to the CIA and FBI during Operation MKUltra, MH Chaos, and COINTELPRO. Well, of course, because it is the same people, right? In Germany, these methods were contained in two programs. Zenderpuck, that's Zersetzung, and Directive Perceptions. So two programs, Zendertung and Directive Perceptions. They were basically German versions of COINTELPRO. Zersetzung was developed to destroy a targeted person's inner self. During an interview on the public broadcasting network, this Dr. Munster, a German target, drew a parallel between the current program and what encountered in East Germany. He explained it this way. In Germany, there is called Zersetzung, and this means the dissolution or disintegration of the targeted person. And then in this book, this person wrote, the German word Zersetzung is harsh and has no direct English equivalent. She described Zersetzung as a concept involves the annihilation of the inner self. What they do is the targeted spreading of rumors about particular persons with the aid of anonymous means of making compromising situations for them by creating confusion over the facts and the engendering of hysterical and depressive behaviors in the target person. So they said this about this directed perceptions. They said she continued with another program designed to develop apathy in the targeted subject to achieve a situation in which his conflicts, whether of social, personal, career, health, or political kind, are irreversible, to give rise to fears in him, to develop, create disappointments, to restrict his talents or capabilities, to reduce his capacity to act, and to harness dissensions and contradictions around him. These directives were used by the Ministry for State Security, or the MFS, against threats to state security. In other words, they were massively used on the population to maintain a dictatorship. These programs were designed to secretly destroy a target's personal and professional life, ruin them financially, and prevent them from reaching their potential, with the intention to produce irreversible, depressive, and panic-stricken behaviors. What the hidden evil appears to be is a combination of various counter-pro operations used by oppressive regimes on their civilian population. It has been refined and deployed globally. And they go on to say, as I'll demonstrate, it is likely an indication of the creation of a worldwide dictatorship. Yeah, I think that's what it is. They have us in a matrix, right? Our bodies are fine-tuned electrical machines. Electricity is the worst thing we could have introduced, right? And in this matrix, it's not like they show us in the movies and stuff. Look at it. We have electricity poles all around the world. We literally have a blanket of electricity holding us down to this matrix type world that we're living here on this game board. This is what it's really all about. And it is to create a worldwide dictatorship, to keep us all in check, get everybody so nervous about everybody else, not see anything coming, right? So I'll keep reading. They say hidden in plain view. Most of us have experience with books where the goal is to find the hidden picture contained in the landscape, or the artwork, where if you look intently, you will eventually see a three-dimensional picture superimposed on a flat background. At first, most of us have trouble detecting these hidden pictures, but with practice, we usually see them. Once the detection mechanism is developed, these hidden objects become clearly visible with little effort. So too with the hidden evil. Once you know what to look for, these borderline subliminal attacks are quite detectable. And also keep in mind, the people they have recruited to run these gang stalkings are terribly troubled people themselves. I've spoken about this in the past. Go watch my shows or listen to my shows about gang stalking. They recruit from local communities, likely being run out of churches. All of these people are also loaded up on pills themselves in the American diet. So you can start to see that the people stalking the rest of us are not a very stable group themselves. And I'll be talking at the end about how to do some reverse gang stalking. Okay. Now, I'm not a coward, but I'll share my experiences, but I don't expect you to do anything. You need to follow your own life path. Why exactly are you here on this game board in this particular time? Once you sort that out, then you will certainly know what steps to take to move forward, right? So let's keep reading here. So rather than using a blunt, overt attack against a fully functional person, they usually attack covertly and conceal their harassment by using existing events that occur naturally. And I've been saying for years, the psychopath, look next to the picture of a coward. They're all cowards. It is always behind our backs. And this gang stalking stuff no more behind our backs than this. They do not approach us frontwise. They have to come at us from our backs because they are sneaky cowards, these psychopaths. So let me keep reading here. So they usually attack covertly and conceal their harassment by using existing events. There is usually cover for the harassment as well. However, it is probably a statistical rarity for some of these staged events to occur as often as they do. And I've been saying this for years, these are not complicated things. And what they do is some of these tactics will sound insane because they're deliberately designed to make someone appear as though they're suffering from a mental disorder. And I've talked about that in the past. What is the one mental disorder that in the criteria is fear or suspicion of the government? And that is when they try to say that we all are crazy, right? Or that we are schizophrenic. That diagnosis was made for this disorder, but I've already talked about that, so let me keep reading. They actually, in this one report that I found, our Department of Justice did a report on gang stalking in 2009. A report titled Stalking Victimization in the United States and was produced by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, an office within the United States Department of Justice, or DOJ. It revealed unprecedented large-scale group stalking in the United States. And I have all of the links down below. And here are some things out of these reports. The links below should take you on a journey of information. The report reveals some of these statistics. 13.1% of stalking victims, over 500,000 victims, were stalked by 3 or more perpetrators. Some 11% of stalking victims were stalked for more than 5 years. Nearly half of stalking victims reported the use of electronic monitoring, including computer spyware, audio-visual surveillance, and or GPS tracking. They also said on page 9, it reveals that there are over 2.15 million male and female harassment victims. Victims of harassment met all the requirements for stalking victimization because those associated with induced fear or additional associated crimes related to stalking harassment. In other words, if a gang stalking victim was not in subjective fear for his or her life or did not associate another crime, such as an assault with the harassment, they were simply left out of the stalking category. This is so even if all the other requirements for stalking victimizations were met, if the harassment victims were in all other ways substantially identical to stalking victims, we can infer that the figures for stalking victims were artificially deflated by almost 50% by deliberate omission, and that almost 1 in 6 stalking victims were stalked by 3 or more perpetrators, i.e., 750,000 American gang stalking victims. And then they had this other document that they got through a New York attorney via a Freedom of Information Act. FOIA shows that 185,000 stalking victims were stalked by groups of 3 to 50 stalkers acting together as a team or group. So, how did this all get started? Well, I believe that it all got started in East Germany. In the cold shadows of the past, the East German Stasi employed a chilling tactic known as Zersetzung. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it very well. Zersetzung. This method of psychological warfare aimed to destabilize dissidents through covert harassment, surveillance, and manipulation. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, bringing an end to the Stasi's reign, the principles of Zersetzung have not only endured, but have evolved and expanded in the digital age. Today, the tactics of psychological manipulation and surveillance are more pervasive, sophisticated, and insidious than ever before. So, historically, the Stasi used crude but effective psychological tactics to induce paranoia and fear among dissidents. In the digital age, these tactics have transformed into highly sophisticated algorithms designed to analyze online behavior, predict psychological states, and subtly influence individuals without their knowledge. These strategies have expanded far beyond national security concerns to encompass political campaigns and consumer behavior manipulation on a massive scale. Social media platforms have become the primary battleground for modern Zersetzung. Well-funded troll farms and extensive bot networks work tirelessly to disseminate disinformation, polarize public opinion, and engage in targeted harassment of individuals. These digital tactics create a suffocating climate of perpetual suspicion and division, systematically eroding trust in institutions and destabilizing the very fabric of society. Of course, the whole goal is to get everybody destabilized, right? Well, they're doing a great job of it, I have to say. So the goal of Zersetzung is the fragmentation, paralysis, disorganization, and isolation of the hostile and negative forces in order to preventively impede the hostile and negative activities, to largely restrict or to totally avert them, and if applicable, to prepare the ground for a political and ideological reestablishment. This technique has been referred to as no-touch torture, or as this person Gittings puts it, quiet terror. Its aim lay explicitly in breaking the person. This has profound psychological consequences, such as anxiety and paranoia. And also keep in mind, when you add electricity to the element, my home is now surrounded by transformers shooting high levels of electricity into my home. Talk about anxiety. People build up tolerances to these things, and then all of a sudden the anxiety hits it, and then they don't know what happened to them, right? So then they go to the doctor. See how it all works? So your home itself is creating the anxiety by the high levels. Even if you're not getting directly targeted, you're getting electricity into your home. All that dirty electricity and all that plutonium from the smart meter is the biggest creator of anxiety that ever could exist. In fact, the tactic is meant to mimic the effects of mental disease so that people reporting such attacks upon them may be considered as paranoid by others, especially their social support relationships. What do? They do covert entry into homes and subtly manipulate the contents, moving furniture, altering the timing of an alarm, removing pictures from walls, or replacing one variety of tea with another, releasing pests such as mice and snakes into the house, returning items from the trash to the home, mysterious phone calls, unordered deliveries, property damage, intentionally incorrect medical treatment, smear campaigns, spreading rumors, group stalking, sending falsified, compromised photos or documents to the victim's family, referencing topics discussed in tapped phone calls, causing personal or occupational failures. Family members were used as leverage against targets. The Stasi also used a method that was really diabolical, and the one method they used is this Zersetzung one. So they say the word is difficult to translate because it means originally biodegradation, but actually it's quite an accurate description. The goal was to destroy secretly the self-confidence of people, for example, by damaging their reputation, by organizing failures in their work, and by destroying their personal relationships. Consider this: East Germany was a very modern dictatorship. The Stasi did not try to arrest every dissident. It preferred to paralyze them, and it could do so because it had access to so much personal information and to so many institutions. Surveillance of the society as a whole provided two benefits to the Stasi. First, it identified targets, and second, by collecting every bit of information possible. The method was used against dissidents, both as individuals and in groups, and it was also used against foreign targets. In fact, as the East German government moved from open physical brutality to silent opposition, it turned to this technique, which had been previously used as a covert tactic outside East Germany. This changed during the 1970s, when the GDR became more interested in gaining a positive international image, and the repression of activists became more subtle. And then I encourage you, if you read these articles I have posted down below, take a look at the comments. People have very interesting things to say. Somebody said this. They said, I wonder if it's worse to get worked over repeatedly than to be the subject of long-term psychological attack. The fact that psychological expertise and deceptive measures like decomposition, which is Zersetzung, a hidden psychological destruction of the subject, came to be applied, as well as a sheer number of operative procedures. So they say there was a second phase of Stasi that began in the mid-1970s. And keep in mind, I haven't gotten there yet, but I did a show a year or two ago. There was a major shift in the 1970s. Not enough time to go there right now. So, so the Stasi at home and abroad, domestic order and foreign intelligence. Selection of targets by the Stasi was mainly done on socialist grounds. Zerderberg was to destabilize the personality of those who had undesirable convictions and who were deemed the opponents of socialism. So they wanted to employ psychological disillusion to them. Targeting took into account the amount of influence that Western nations could bring to bear to protect a target, but that influence could not prevent the application of Zersetzung. Elaborate Zersetzung measures were presumably used on internal opposition groups, as well as on groups of immigrant applicants. The more active a hostile negative person was, and the more protected from prosecution by the Western media and church, the more extensive the measures taken against him. Less elaborate standard measures were probably used in most operational cases between 1985 and 1988, when the MIS carried out an average of 4,500 to 5,000 operational cases per year. and most likely formed a part of the 20,000 operational person controls carried out annually. And that influence was also one of those things that Stasis were looking to counter. A third priority was containment and control of all kinds of Western influence, so-called political ideological diversion, or PID. And this is a little bit of how they developed it. By 1958, the Stasi had become so proficient in psyops, they began to operate independent of the KGB control. The methods, and this is very important, the methods of Zersetzung were developed at the Stasi College. The accusation of Zersetzung itself, the accused is somehow undermining, I don't know what that means. So what they say is, they have these things that's called operative Vorgang. And what it says is the methods, meaning operative Vorgang of Zersetzung applied against the accused, all the family, friendship, professional, and supportive relationship of the accused are disintegrated. Yeah, they go after everybody in your whole life to get them out of your life. And I've given you some examples of that, like during the Franklin case, the Boys Town case, one of the photographers, Rusty Nelson, who I happen to believe, they basically, Rusty was actually living here in Norfolk, Nebraska, the same town that I'm in. And what they did was he was starting his life over again. And what they did was the cops rousted him. You know, he had a girlfriend, he had a new photography studio. The cops rousted him because what they do, if you're renting, they go around and they destabilize you by kicking you out of your property. And fortunately, my family owns my property. Now, nobody particularly agrees with me, but nobody's going to kick me out if you get what I'm saying. So I'm in a much different position because what they do is they look for our own personal vulnerabilities, right? Like if your family is really, really against you, they're going to know that. So then they know how hard to push you. Yeah, maybe if your family doesn't really agree with what you're doing, but they don't hate your guts, they're probably not going to kick you out of the property, right? So it is all done to try to destabilize. And as a matter of fact, I've said this in the past, I'm living in Norfolk, Nebraska, which is in fact a coven. Same coven that started in Norfolk, UK, Norfolk, Virginia, where our CIA is, NATO and all those people. They're in the coven in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm in the coven in Norfolk, Nebraska. And my neighbors, you never know who you're living next to, right? My neighbors are heavily involved in this coven. I've lived next to these people, I don't know, over 10 years and never had a single clue, right? Well, they have left their property. They're no longer living next door. The dogs are over there. Somebody comes every once in a while and feeds them and stuff. But yeah, they've left the neighborhood. She get away from me? I don't know. But they showed up, I don't know, in the last month or so, and they put a little camera in their window, the window that faces the room I'm in. So, and I'll talk about this more at the end, but you have to learn to kind of brush these things off. So they had shown up at the house, and then I noticed outside of my window, they had this little white camera thing facing into my window. So I just laughed and thought, oh, those crap heads, look what they did now. So what I did was this, because I'm doing counter. Listen, I'm not a coward, okay? So what I did was I laughed to myself, and then I went and got a black garbage bag, and I put it over the window that the camera's facing into. So yeah, I never, ever, ever would have guessed that my neighbors were Satanists inside of this coven and very involved with the church and the local Satan deal and all that. And never in a million years would I have guessed any of this stuff. So yeah, they do a lot of this stuff. And then it's to trick you into going crazy, right? Well, with the amount of electricity I have coming to my home, it would be probably easy to trick somebody into going crazy because You're already anxious from all the electricity. I'm already anxious from I have lung cancer and severe radiation poisoning. So I've already got a lot of anxiety issues going on. So I just decided that I had to laugh, right? Because the hell's going on over here on this game board? I got people next door to me who've left their property. They're installing cameras to look in my window. I'm just a 73-year-old woman living here in Nebraska trying to figure out what is the truth. And all of a sudden, the entire town is against me. The cops have come out here twice. Why do you think I'm talking about having weapons and cameras in my own home? I'll talk about that at the end here. Let me get back on track here. So yeah, you never know who you're living next to is my point here. So anyway, uh so this is a good one. There is also a good deal of comparison between Zersetzung and some counter-intelpro methods. M16, that's our Brit friends, or MI6, or however you say it, have been accused of these psyops. The East Germans were not the only ones who have used these methods. Yes, of course not, because they're all the same people, right? And they say Zersetzung attacks include this: surveillance, intimidation, harassment, smears, aggressive threats, implied threats, street theater, telephone tappers, cyberbullying. So now they have some other dates here to take a look at. They say that the grassroots opposition movements made the biggest contribution to the revolution that started in East Germany in the autumn of 1989, despite the horrifying levels of repression and surveillance that they had faced for decades. Quite simply, the Stasi failed to predict the events of that year. And once things had started, their Zertenberg tactics became ineffective. And they went on to say, I will say that the more targets a hostile organization has to deal with, the less effective that Zertenberg becomes. In addition, people who are active against possible users of the technique need to be aware of the tactics and be ready to counter or to endure them. This certainly means taking a second look at any rumors or accusations made against allies, or even putting non-critical issues aside until after the goals have been accomplished. I don't know what that means, but so let me see. This is a good piece. It says, there is a fairy tale that gang stalkers like to tell each other, which was invented by the same corrupt officials currently leading the torture of thousands of American citizens across the country. This twisted tale suggests that it's somehow legal to stalk, eavesdrop on, harass, and torture people simply because the CIA, NSA, or some other high-ranking intelligence, police, or military agency says it's okay, and obviously unilateral opinion that overreaches both the function and vested authority of these services. It is not up to the police, military, intelligence agencies, or citizens to try to convict and punish anyone. That is why we have courts and juries, which allow people to actually hear the charges against them, acquire legal counsel, and answer those charges. In fact, our legal system has been deliberately and very carefully designed to prevent just such unjustified assaults that compromise the complex crime known as organized stalking, aka gang stalking. Circumventing the American judicial system in a form of vigilantism and is a direct violation of both the 6th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution. But I encourage you to think more clearly than this. The United States became a corporation in 1871. The United States became a bankrupt corporation in 1933. Also, in 1933, every USA citizen was declared an enemy of the state. We never had any rights in all these years, so just be careful how you interpret some things that you're going to be reading about in the future, right? Because now I guess we're all pretending like we have rights, right? That's the only thing I can think about because the US is going around and spending money. They're making contracts, they're making agreements, where they're making agreements as a bankrupt corporation, or are they making agreements as the United States as a nation? Where are they taking out all these loans from? They're a bankrupt corporation. How's this all working? But let me keep going here. I found a great article. The serendipity, you have to excuse me, with radiation, what's happening is it's like knocking my teeth out, Chef. I'm having trouble pronouncing words, but I'll get there. Don't worry. I won't back down for a second. The surreptitious reincarnation of counterpro with the cops gang stalking program. So, why did I go backwards? Okay. And this is where it all got started. Remember, I've been talking, go listen to my other shows about gang stalking. In 1975, Senator Frank Church convened a joint senatorial congressional inquiry into the human rights and civil liberty violations of the CIA, National Security Agency, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation against people both foreign and domestic. Such blatant transgressions included the neutralization and elimination of political dissidents, enemies of the state, real or imagined threats to national security, or anyone else on the proverbial shit list of the military-industrial complex. The Church Committee was the United States Select Committee to study government operations with respect to intelligence activities, and it was a U.S. Senate committee chaired by Senator Frank Church, who was a Democrat from Idaho in 1975. A precursor to the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the committee investigated intelligence gatherings for illegality by the aforementioned agencies after certain activities had been revealed by the Watergate affair. Some famous examples which have emerged include 1. The FBI sending letters to Martin Luther King encouraging him to kill himself, or else they would tell the world about his sexual proclivities. 2. The planned or successful assassinations of foreign leaders such as Fidel Castro, Patrice Lumumba, and countless other South American, Middle Eastern, or Asian leaders. Or 3. The wholesale undermining of entire foreign economies if they democratically elected someone at odds with the elite power structure deep state of the United States, such as what occurred against Salvador Allende of Guatemala. Or 4, the possible assassination of JFK. Well, that's not true. But anyway, so 5, revelations that Christopher Pyle on January 1970 of the U.S. Army spying on the civilization. So there was some revelation that Christopher Pyle, P-Y-L-E, they alleged that the U.S. Army was spying on the civilian populations. Number 6, the December 22, 1974 New York Times article by Seymour Hersh detailing operations engaged by the CIA over the years that had been dubbed the Family Jewels, involving covert action covert action programs involving assassination attempts against foreign leaders and covert attempts to subvert foreign governments were reported for the first time. Now, keep in mind, Seymour Hersh is one of them. He's only going to tell you so much, right? But they're always going to tell you part of the truth. So, yeah, dubbed the family jewels is what you're looking for, right? All you have to do is pick up a couple of these keywords and you're off to the races, right? So where was I here? Number 7, efforts by intelligence agencies to collect information on the political activities of U.S. citizens. And 8, countless other examples, both overseas and domestically. The end result of the church committee hearings was the outright banning. Okay, I'll try not to laugh. The end result of the church committee hearings was the outright banning on CIA assassinations, as well as the FBI, DOJ counterintel probe gang stalking programs. So they banned this in 1975. So in 1975 and 1976, the Church Committee published 14 reports on various U.S. intelligence agencies' formation, operations, and the alleged abuses of law and of power that they had committed, with recommendations for reform, some of which were later put in place. So yeah, what you're looking for is the Church Committee hearings. So they always, part of their deal with magic is telling part of the truth right before they lay the hammer on us. So it looks to me like in 1975, they were telling us the truth. Among the other matters investigated were attempts to assassinate other foreign leaders, such as Rafael Trujillo of the Dominican Republic, the Diem brothers of Vietnam, General Rene Schneider of Chile, and director of CIA Allen Dulles' plan, which was approved by President Dwight Eisenhower to use the Sicilian mafia to kill Fidel Castro of Cuba. These people have never met anybody they did not want to murder. Even if you think you're on their team, watch your back. You are not on their team unless you're one of the 300. They're getting all these people to do all these horrific things like raping children, eating children's hearts, all these initiations to get into this group. Who does that? Who does these things to get into this group? Well, all these people gang stalking the rest of us have all done these initiations. We're in some pretty sick territory, but let me get focused back here on reading. So, under recommendations and pressure by this committee, President Gerald Ford issued this executive order 11905, which was ultimately replaced in 1981 by Reagan's executive order 12333 to ban U.S. sanctions assassinations of foreign leaders. So if you're a foreign leader out there listening to little old me here, this old woman talking to you from Nebraska, I got something to say to you. If you think you're being a foreign leader to come after the rest of your own people, I got some news for you. They did pass this executive order under Reagan, order number 12333. If the number alone doesn't give you pause, I don't know what will. But they did ban, the U.S. banned sanctioning assassinations of foreign leaders. But millions of people have been killed since 1981. Just because they pass a law doesn't mean it's reality. So let me keep reading. Together, the Church Committee's reports have been said to constitute the most extensive review of intelligence activities ever made available to the public. Much of the contents were classified, but over 50,000 pages were declassified under this Congressional Act of 1992. The Church Committee learned that beginning in the 1950s, the CIA and the FBI intercepted, opened, and photographed more than 215,000 pieces of mail by the time the program was shut down. The Church report found that the CIA was zealous about keeping U.S. Postal Service from learning that mail had been opened by government agents. CIA agents moved mail to a private room to open the mail, or in some cases, open envelopes at night after stuffing them in briefcases or coat pockets to deceive postal officials. And this is where it gets very interesting. Remember our old friend Bill Colby? Is Bill Colby even dead? Bill Colby, CIA director, another suspicious death in shallow water. But was it death? I don't know. Anyway, so on May the 9th, 1975, the Church Committee called the CIA director, our old friend, William Colby. That same day, Ford's top advisors, Henry Kissinger, Donald Rumsfeld, Philip Buchan, and John Marsh, drafted a recommendation that Colby be authorized to brief only rather than testify, and that he would be told to discuss only the general subject, with details of specific covert actions to be avoided except for realistic hypotheticals. But the Church Committee had full authority to call a hearing and require Colby's testimony. Ford and his top advisors met with Colby to prepare him for the hearing. The Ford administration, particularly Rumsfeld, was concerned about the effort by members of the Church Committee in the Senate and the Pike Committee in the House to curtail the power of U.S. intelligence agencies. It seemed that Rumsfeld et al. Was comfortable giving the power to arbitrarily destroy anyone as enemies of the state by anyone working in the IC and MIC, that's military industrial complex. So what is this COINTELPRO? It's called Counterintelligence Program. COINTELPRO was a series of covert and illegal projects conducted by the FBI aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political dissidents. FBI records show that COINTELPRO resources targeting groups and individuals that the FBI deemed subversive, including anti-Vietnam War organizers, activists in the civil rights movement or Black Power movement, feminist organizations, anti-colonial movements, and a variety of organizations that were part of the broader New Left. FBI director, another reliable person, J. Edgar Hoover, who also used to cross-dress. We're run by a bunch of pretty sick people, but I need to keep reading here. Don't get me started on these people raping children and eating their hearts. Just don't get me started today, okay? Every time you look at these people, I want you to see blood dripping from their lips. I want you to see the reality of who these people are. Stop being nice to their friends. Stop engaging them in a friendly manner. They are not our friends. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover issued directives on COINTELPRO, ordering FBI agents to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, neutralize, or otherwise eliminate the activities of these movements, and especially their leaders. Under Hoover, the agent in charge of COINTELPRO was William C. Sullivan. Tactics included anonymous phone calls, IRS audits, and the creation of documents that would divide their targets internally. After the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Hoover singled out King as a major target for COINTELPRO. Under pressure from Hoover to focus on King, Sullivan wrote this: in the light of King's powerful demagogic speech, we must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security. The final report of the Select Frank Church Committee blasted the behavior of the intelligence community in its domestic operations, including COINTELPRO, in no uncertain terms. And this is what they said. The committee finds that the domestic activities of the intelligence communities at times violated specific statutory prohibitions and infringed the constitutional rights of American citizens. The legal questions involved in intelligence programs were not considered. On other occasions, they were intentionally disregarded in the belief that the programs served the national security and the law would not apply. While intelligence officers on occasion failed to disclose to their superiors programs which were illegal or questionable legality, the committee finds that the most serious breaches of duty were those of senior officials who were responsible for controlling intelligence activities and generally failed to assure compliance with the law. Many of the techniques used would be intolerable in a democratic society, even if all the targets had been involved in violent activity. But COINTELPRO went far beyond that. The Bureau conducted a sophisticated vigilante operation aimed squarely at preventing the exercise of free speech rights of speech and association on the theory that preventing the growth of a dangerous groups and the propaganda and the propagation of dangerous ideas would protect the national security and deter violence. It's always to help us out, right? Why do you think I am always saying that evil has to come packaged as help, right? And then this person wrote a book called War at Home, and he said the FBI used 4 main methods during COINTELPRO. Number 1, infiltration. Agents and informers did not merely spy on political activists. Their main purpose was to discredit and disrupt. Their very presence served to undermine trust and scare off potential supporters. The FBI and police exploited this fear to smear genuine activists as agents. Number 2, psychological warfare. The FBI and police used myriad dirty tricks to undermine progressive movements. They planted false media stories and published bogus leaflets and other publications in the name of targeted groups. They forged correspondence, sent anonymous letters, and made anonymous telephone calls. They spread misinformation about meetings and events. They set up pseudo movement groups run by government agents and manipulated or strong-armed parents, employers, landlords, school officials, and others to cause trouble for activists. I'll read that again. They set up pseudo movement groups that were run by government agents and manipulated or strong-armed the parents, the employers, landlords, school officials, and others to cause trouble for activists. They used bad jacketing to create suspicion about targeted activists, sometimes with lethal consequences. 3, harassment via the legal system. The FBI and police abused the legal system to harass dissidents and make them appear to be criminals. Officers of the law gave perjured testimony and presented fabricated evidence as a pretext for false arrests and wrongful imprisonment. They discriminatorily enforced tax laws and other government regulations and used conspicuous surveillance investigative interviews and grand jury subpoenas in an effort to intimidate activists and silence their supporters. Number 4, illegal force. The FBI conspired with local police departments to threaten dissidents, and I've talked about this in the past. This happened in 2001 on the heels of 9/11. They came up with fusion centers. I've gone into all those details already. So the FBI specifically developed tactics intended to heighten tension and hostility between various factions in their target groups and individuals. And this resulted in numerous deaths, among which were San Diego Black Panthers Party members John Huggins, Carter, and Sylvester Bell. Well, COINTELPRO was officially terminated in April 1971. Critics allege that continuing FBI actions indicate that post-COINTELPRO reforms did not succeed in ending COINTELPRO tactics. So, where'd some of this stuff? Some of this stuff came from this thing called COPS. I don't think I talked about that in the shows that I did about gang stalking. What is COPS? COPS. Community-oriented policing is a strategy of policing that focuses on police building ties and working closely with members in the communities, and originated, listen to this, this community-oriented policing, or COPS, originated in 1994 when then Senator Joseph Biden wrote and then President Bill Clinton enacted the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, or VCCLEA, establishing the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services within the U.S. Department of Justice. So, right there, 1994, and then what was 9/11 was what? 2001? Community policing is supposedly a policy that requires police to engage in a proactive approach to address public safety concerns and is a cornerstone of the Clinton administration. Gaining its funding, this is important, from the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. So they're using tax dollars. I've been saying this for years. We are paying for our own demise. So common implementations of community policing include: 1, relying on community-based crime prevention by utilizing civilian education, neighborhood watch, and a variety of other techniques. And while I'm thinking about it, I have several shows I've already gotten written, okay? It's just that the plutonium has been so thick in the air, but now that it's winter and it's cold, you need to not use your heater, but I can't go there right now. But now that it's winter and it's colder, I have a show that I've already written about Peter Thiel, the guy that's financing Rumble and the guy that's financing J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president. Well, it gets much worse when I bring in this Peter Thiel thing. But just put a pen on that one, because, yeah, Peter Thiel is, well, they're selling some pretty, the Israelis have some very questionable tracking devices, okay? And Peter Thiel, in conjunction with the CIA and the Israelis, has an answer to more surveillance. But I don't even think that his whole thing is real. I think it's another fear bait. But I got to get back to where I am today. So let me keep focused here. But just put a pen on this Peter Thiel deal in Israel. All those white people in the middle of Muslim country are up to no good, I'm telling you. They stole that land, they stole your children. They're up to no good. But anyways, let me keep going here. So, okay, so they rely on Peter Thiel, yeah. So this thing with Peter Thiel, they're not able to just legally tap into your phones right now. Are they doing it on the slide? Yeah, probably. But what they're doing is this. They came up with this really clever thing that it ties into the emergency system. So if you call the emergency system in this country, they have your phone. So don't call. I'm not telling you don't call because I don't want to tell you what to do. But somehow this Peter Thiel thing that I'll get back to has to do with if you call the 911 service, then that somehow acquires what's on your phone. Yeah, it's a really sketchy deal, but I can't go there right now. So yeah, they're educating other civilians about us, right? So they say, in other words, federal and state sanctioned and approved gang stalking. Gang stalking has been described as fascism. What are they talking about now? Trump's going to bring us fascism. This whole country is run by criminals, okay? Let's get that in your head first. So, gang stalking has been described as fascism using East Germany style Stasi tactics, a systematic form of control. What is the number one thing for psychopaths? I've offered you my book for free. They want to control us. All of them do. Anybody who's a psychopath, their number one goal is control. So, using East Germany style Stasi tactics, a systematic form of control which seeks to control every aspect of a targeted individual's life. Gang stalking has many similarities to workplace mobbing, but takes place outside in the community where the target is followed around and placed under surveillance by groups of organized civilian spies, snitches, 24/7, 365 days a year. Targeted individuals are harassed in this way for months or years before they realize they are being targeted by an organized program of gang stalking harassment. This is very similar to what happened to many innocent individuals in the former East Germany or activists and dissidents in the former Soviet Union. Many people in the former East Germany would be targeted for these harassment programs, and then their family, friends, and the community at large would be used to monitor, prosecute, and harass them. In the former USSR, it was used by the state to target activists, political dissidents, or anyone that the secret police thought was an enemy of the state or as mentally unfit, and many were institutionalized or murdered using this form of systematic control. And I will say this one more time. I personally spent 2 nights in a U.S. mental ward. I also personally spent 1 night in a U.S. county jail. These were done against my choice. People said, well, why'd you let it happen? That is how it is. The laws state that if they consider any of us suspicious or possible terrorists, that those laws kick into gear. If you walk into a hospital and you decide that maybe you don't want to take the treatment they're telling you to take, you may not walk out of that hospital again. Heed my warning. You will not walk out. They hold the control, and believe me, they will use that control. In Bill Clinton's cops gang stalking program, civilian spies are recruited from every segment of society, and everyone in the target's life is made a part of this ongoing, continuous, and systematic form of control and harassment, with such actions that are specifically designed to control the target and to keep them in line like a Pavlovian dog. These actions are also designed to mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, socially, and psychologically destroy the target over years, to make them appear to be crazy and leave them with no form of support whatsoever. For the targets of this harassment, cops gang stalking is experienced as a covert psychological, emotional, and physical attack that is capable of immobilizing and destroying a target over time. For the state, it is a way to keep their targets in line, control them, and ultimately destroy them. This modern-day systematic form of control is funded at the highest levels of government, just like it has in other societies where these similar types of harassment programs have been implemented. Targets can be chosen for many reasons: political views, whistleblowing, political dissidence, asserting your rights at work, making the wrong enemy, too outspoken, investigating something that state does not want investigated, signing a petition, writing a letter, being suspicious by a civilian spy or snitch, or being a religious, ethnic, racial minority. The goal of the COPS state-sanctioned organized gang stalking program is to isolate the target from all forms of support so that the target can be set up in the future for arrest, institutionalization, or forced suicide. Other goals of this harassment are to destroy the target's reputation and credibility and to make the target look crazy or unstable. The process often involves sensitizing the target to everyday stimuli as a form of control. When a target moves or changes job, the harassment continues. Every time the target moves, the same defamation, lies, libel, and slander will be spread, and the systematic harassment will continue. People from all segments of society can be recruited to be the eyes and ears of the state, such as laborers, drug dealers, drug users, street people, prostitutes, punks, church groups, youth groups, your best friend, your lawyer, local policeman, the doctor, emergency services, a neighbor, family, social worker, politicians, judges, dentists, vets, supermarket cashier, postman, religious leader, caseworker, landlord, anyone. And don't use that to be paranoid, okay? I mean, I am living in the middle of a COVID, and I am far from paranoid sitting here, right? I think if you believe that this isn't our only life, you judge this whole thing much differently, right? But this is not my only life, and these people have been out to get me for a long time. I've just used every trick in the book to avoid them getting me when they thought they should. So I'm hoping to encourage you to use, let's say, more focused thinking to wrangle your way through the rest of the game board. Solidarity would be nice. It has been reported that people who participate in this cops gang stalking, they participate because it gives them a sense of power, is a way to make friends, is something social and fun. It breaks down race, gender, age, social barriers, is forced or blackmailed upon them by the state or police to take part. Yeah, a lot of these people could be also getting caught doing something themselves, and the cops say, I could get you out of these charges, but there's a few people I'd like you to keep track of for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, they get you off on charges. So let me see. Is forced to blackmail upon that? Yeah, they force a blackmail on. They're told to It is told to them that they are part of Homeland or national security to keep an eye on dangerous or emotionally disturbed individuals where they are heroic spies for the state. It's used on local thugs or informants who are already being used for other activities where their energies are diverted into these cops, gang stalking, community spy programs. It is either a choice of spying for the state or police or else go to jail. involves outright lies and slander about the target to get them to go along with ruining the target's life. Includes average citizens recruited by the state the same way citizens were recruited by the former East Germany and other countries. Some techniques in this organized cops gang stalking program include classic conditioning, where a target is sensitized to everyday stimuli over a period of months and years to harass them in public, to let them know they are constantly being harassed and monitored. 24/7 surveillance, following the target everywhere they go, learning about the target and where they shop, work, play, who their friends and family are, getting close to the target, moving into the community or apartment where they live across the street. So yeah, they can do a lot of things. Also, what they do, let me see here. So, yeah, they also will talk in public about private things in the target's life to get other people to hear what they're saying. I think we get the picture. The goal of such operations is disruption of the life of an individual deemed to be an enemy or potential enemy of clients or members of the security state. Arguably, the most accurate term for this form of harassment would be counterintelligence stalking. So, the agents of Communist East Germany Stasi, the state police, referred to this process as Zersetzung, German for decomposition or corrosion, or no-touch torture. So, tactics include online and personal slander. Yeah, I think we got the picture here. Such stalking is sanctioned and in some cases orchestrated by federal agencies. Most of these people are doing it out there on their own, and how it works, go listen to my shows, but basically how it works is the groups are set up to work individually within different towns and stuff. And when they run into trouble, they can call their friends at the FBI to come in and further manage things. Uh, yeah, they definitely work in gangs. So, as stated above, organized stalking methods were used extensively by Communist East Germany Stasi as a means of maintaining political control over its citizens. Although this is supposedly illegal in the US, the same covert activities are quietly being used by America's local and federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies. And then they bring up Edward Snowden, but keep in mind, Edward Snowden is a liar, right? Edward Snowden was their confession. Edward Snowden was about saying, we got a lot of data on you. Well, yeah, they could have a lot of data. I mean, I wouldn't take this stuff about all this data and go crazy with it, because I have a ton of data. Everybody can have data, right? It's what you do with the data that counts. I mean, they go around, and instead of spying on us directly, they go and buy third party information. They do this, they do that. Well, first of all, getting a lot of information is just the first step, right? You have to have the intelligence to interpret what the information means. So this goes on to say the FBI's COINTELPRO operation is still happening. Yes, of course it is, involving even more advanced techniques. So, and I have those Department of Justice reports down below for you to take a look at it. But it's interesting that it happened to Bill Clinton, right? Bill Clinton was the one who also apologized for gassing us all with uranium. So this is interesting too. There is actually Stasi University in Potsdam. Isn't it Potsdam where they came? Yeah, Potsdam is where they came up with those other agreements. So I don't know. Needs to follow up. Is Stasi? No, there is. It says, oh, it's Stasi University in Potsdam. They didn't say what the name was. And it says there you can learn a set of techniques they call Zersetzung. Yeah, I guess there's a thing where you can go and learn about it. Okay, let me keep moving here. And this is interesting. The modern counter-pro and how to fight it. And I am giving you some very, very loose information. I hope you will use your own time and silence to interpret this how it makes sense for you in particular. Just because I am doing certain things does not mean that you should be doing them also. Hopefully, this will encourage you to think of a new thought process just for your own particular situation. We are all in different situations. There's several people that are publicly talking about how they're being gang stalked, and I'm doing that myself. But I'm also in a very dangerous situation. So don't emulate what I'm doing for your situation, is what I'm saying. Use your own. You came here with a path for this game board. Understand what your path is and then operate from that basis, not from a monkey see, monkey do standpoint. Because here's how it works, because these people that are gang stalking the rest of us are not what I would consider highly stable people, okay? And I'll read this piece. The FBI is also known for recruiting mentally unstable individuals to commit terror acts, helping them develop illegal plots, and then arresting them at the last minute. Afterward, the agency can brag that they stopped terrorism through their sting operations when it was they themselves who acted as a terrorist organization by creating the plan and assisting the terrorists to complete it. And they do this stuff all the time. They do it with the law. You know, when they have these, they do these test cases with the law. These are things that aren't even true that they dream up. And then they say, well, we're just going to do this for a test case for the law, but this really didn't happen. It's insane. But they're called, I don't know what the official word is, but they have these legal test cases that they do. And that was how they got Roe versus Wade. It wasn't even really a case. They made it up. But anyhow, I can't go there right now. But what they're saying to do is this, is do a reverse gang stalking, okay? And take the fear out of the game, okay? What they want to do is set you on your edge. Well, maybe that's where you want to go. I don't know. I'm not speaking for you. I'm just trying to explain that maybe they may want to just shake you up, right? Get you more nervous and all this kind of stuff. And you may think that, yeah, I am pretty nervous. I want to stay nervous, leave you alone. And that's also a case too, right? So, the way to here's the thing. They want you to get violent and go after one of these people because then they got you, right? Then they can go after you using the cops and stuff, right? Then you will be the one who gets arrested. So cooler heads must prevail. You're not going to fight fire with fire. You're dealing with unstable people. I have not left my house in a few years, and I didn't leave my house because I knew that I would likely be driven off the road. So everybody needs to take their own defensive actions, right? I personally think that in my situation, calling the cops would be, well, why would I do that, right? The cops have come to my house twice just to harass me. The last time a cop showed up, shined a flashlight in my window in the middle of the night, asking me if I was okay. The first thing he said was, I said, yeah, I'm okay. What do you want? And he said, well, do you want me to call an ambulance? It's like, what in the hell, right? So what I'm saying is they're doing stuff, right? But only we can decide how individually we're going to respond. When that happened to me, it made me very angry, right? Well, then I dug harder. I looked further. I dug into more information. So when things happen to me, what happens is I immediately move into action. Okay. Maybe you're not a move into action person. So maybe this isn't for you. it is not a one style fits thing. But let's say this. First of all, if I felt like I was being stalked, and I was still driving around and stuff, I would be very careful where I drove to. I would be very careful driving at night and stuff. Very easy to run people off the road. But if you're out and about and you see somebody taking a picture of you or staring at you using those examples I used before, well, then take a picture of them if you feel motivated to do it. If you think that they're listening in on your home or whatever, then talk about them. Mention the fact that you have weapons or cameras or whatever you have and stuff. So it has to be a very individual choice. So I would say that everybody is going to react differently. And the bottom line is this. I'm going to be closing off this file here, but the bottom line is this. This is a game board. We have more than one life. This is not the end of all of our lives, okay? And if you have that kind of a position, then you will make the worst enemy they ever could have found, because what do I care, right? I'm not leaving my house for anything. I've got my camera set up and my little supplies figured out. But your situation has to be best for you to deal with it, what works independently for you, because there is nobody outside of my home gang stalking me and watching my home. Why would they? I haven't left my home in a couple of years. Now, should I leave my home? The picture would definitely change, right? I'm in a small town in Nebraska. All I have to do is leave this town, and all of a sudden I'm on wide open roads, right? So, should I leave my house? I'm sure that I would be more, let's say, followed. But I can see them following me in different areas. I've talked about this in the past. They have totally manipulated my numbers on my podcast. I didn't really know that they were hanging around my podcast for several years, because I don't sit around and worry about this kind of stuff. I just keep busy. So I haven't let it stop me from doing a single thing. I'm just look a little bit sharper at different things. They pulled a pretty good trick on me the other day, and I just laughed my head off. What'd they do? Well, I was over on YouTube, and somebody made a comment, which I responded to. So then I looked for that person on Facebook. What they did was they just zapped it all out. It was a... So they're always doing little things, because remember, I caught them installing the transformer up to my smart meter. I don't know what to tell you. If you're not keeping an eye on your smart meter and your transformer, well, once they're really gang stalking you, and I've already explained how this all worked with me, an order went out in 2019. They officially hooked up my smart meter to a transformer early 2020. I have documented it all. So keep your eyes on a swivel. Keep your eyes on a swivel. But if you get into a panic, what happens is that then you won't be thinking as clearly. And stay with the facts. People that want to confuse things are entering this gang stalking thing and talking about things like, oh, they're sending me messages across the street. No, they are not. They're not using direct energy weapons. And then I read somebody in the comments, they said, yeah, I think they're getting direct energy weapons on me, because every time I go into my bedroom, I get attacked. Well, let me ask you this. Does your bedroom have a smart meter attached to it? That's probably the answer. And when you start going through this, always, and I mean always, start to think of the simple. Imagine this. I told everything that I've known all along. And because of that, they came back out and they actually added more transformers to my property. So talking has not been easy, because they seem to want to keep me quiet. But you got it within you. We came here for a purpose. Just remember what your purpose is and act accordingly. So be safe out there, and goodbye for now. And hopefully I'll be back with this business with, I have quite a few shows already written. Do you realize that vitamin D isn't really a vitamin, it's a hormone? And Peter Thiel and this whole Trump thing, they're all aligned to all of this. So be safe out there, and goodbye for now.